Teri.
Hi.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, maybe we have worked through all of our little technical things here. And so, Teri Brown, welcome to the Bookaholic podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, fantastic. So, for those who don't know, Teri Brown has been on the Bookaholic podcast. This is her third time. She is my most profiled author in Bookaholic podcast history. So let's just give her a little round of applause for that. Goodness gracious. Well, but that's just to say you are really churning the books out. And I think that's phenomenal. I
Thank
was
you.
just about my own. I mean, I haven't written any books and I'm not an aspiring author at all. But I was just thinking, wow, I mean, I would just probably still be on the same book that I like 10 years ago. And I mean, and that does happen to people.
Yes, it
I'm not
does.
say, that that's not acceptable. Everybody has their own pace, but you're really getting those books out there. And so let's really delve into the one that has just come out this January, starting off the new year. And it's called The Daughters of the, oh, wait, hold on a second. It's The Daughters of the, go ahead and
No,
give us
it's
the,
Daughters of Green Mountain Gap. No, just Daughters of Green Mountain Gap.
got
Right.
it, Daughters of Green Mountain Gap. And
Right.
that really interested me because it takes place in North Carolina
hmm
at the turn of the 20th century. So we're saying maybe 1900s,
So it's like
19.
1890s, the middle of the 1890s.
Oh,
So like
okay.
right before the century turns.
Got you, got you, got you, got you. And so I remember being a student in school and us learning here in North Carolina the Foxfire series. Have you ever heard of the Foxfire series,
No,
Terry?
I have not. I have not.
Okay, well, there was a whole series of books that they did on the folks up in the Appalachian Mountains of North Carolina. And one of the books, it was like I said, it was a whole series. And one of those books focused on the ancient remedies, people
Oh.
being able to know which plant was to heal an earache, which plant was to heal digestive issues, those types of things. It was totally fascinating. I think I might have been in the sixth grade, and I was so intrigued by that. I may may it just came to me. I may have a copy of one of those books in my library in my home. But I was totally intrigued by that because there's a whole historical thing to do with healing and plants and rituals. Some, if we were in New Orleans and you had written a book with New Orleans, it would have mostly dealt with possibly not voodoo, but voodoo and
Right.
those type of things with
Right.
plants and herbs and all these type of things. So, but truly, plants have helped our ancestors in healing and maybe some other kind of things that they didn't want disclosed, magical spells or whatever
Well,
have you.
and I think what's interesting is that, in the 1890s there weren't a lot of options. And
No, yeah,
especially if you didn't live in a big city, there were even fewer options. So
right.
in the meantime, now years have gone by, so we do have a lot of options. But if you'll notice, people today are kind of going back to some of those herbal roots again. And I don't
Right.
think it's to say that modern medicine is no good, it's to say that we threw out everything. We got
Yeah,
this modern medicine in and we threw it all away. We threw everything we used to know out. And now people are saying there was a lot of good to that. There were a
right.
lot of things that people did that were preventative in nature,
Correct. Correct.
right? And so we're kind of looking back at that now. Like do we really need these sometimes expensive, sometimes really harsh side effects? Do we
right.
need these for some of the more simple aspects of our healthcare? When you
Right.
have an earache, is there something else you could do? And so
Yes.
people are kind of looking at that now. And that's kind of where this book originated, was that idea of like, do we throw the baby out with the bathwater? You know,
Right. Right.
in
Right.
comes modern medicine and out goes everything we ever knew before. And now people are looking again and saying, there were good things here.
There were good things there.
Hmm.
And the word that brings to mind is homeopathic. So
Exactly.
looking towards that area. But let's delve into the book, and then we'll come back out on the
Okay.
other end with the possibly the same types of things. Now, once again, you've written a historical fiction
Hmm.
book, and I'm intrigued because it involves three generations, and historical fiction is my jam. I love
Yes.
historical. And when you get three generations, there's bound to be conflict because different generations have different thoughts and ideas on various subject matters. So, let's get started with this. So you have a grandmother. She's
Right.
a Maggie McCrory.
Hmm.
McCrory.
Hmm.
She's a generational healer woman.
Right.
And
Which they also call a granny woman.
oh, a
And
granny
so
woman.
that's kind of what they're called in the Appalachian Mountains, is a granny woman. And
Oh,
they're usually older, and they're older because they've learned their trade from their mother and their grandmother and their great grandmother and their great great grandmother, and they don't usually get to take over until
okay.
the one ahead of them has died, and now they have now become the granny woman. So,
Oh, got you. And by the way, for point of reference, I'm 2 hours away from the Appalachian Mountains.
okay.
So it's just up the road from me,
Right.
where these types of things went on. And so you have the granny woman, and you have her daughter
Right.
on a crusade. Now, is the daughter more is she more medically trained?
So she ends up going to Boston, and while in Boston, she gets a nursing degree. And so
Oh,
she really believes in this modern idea of medicine, that we should be using apothecaries and we should be using doctors who have been trained. And she kind of looks at her mom like, you're a crazy healer lady who doesn't know anything. You're over there chopping up dandelions, and we should be doing something more. So that's
right.
kind of, and you see this between the two of them, where it isn't really so much that Maggie doesn't appreciate her daughter, but that her daughter has decided that her mother is not medical and should not be listened to.
Oh, okay. So we have that. And
Hmm.
then we have Maggie's daughter. No, it's not Maggie's daughter, but we have the daughter who has the nursing degree.
Right.
Her daughter, Carrie Ann.
No,
And
that Carrie Ann is the nursing degree, and her daughter Josie May.
there we go.
Right.
Excuse me.
That's
So
all right.
May, she's torn. Both of her elders, one is her mother, one is the granny mother, and she's torn on who to listen to. Who to
Right. Because she's looking at it, standing back and looking, and she sees grandma does some really great things. And then she looks at her mother and says, "My mother does some really great things." She also looks at both of them and says, "They both have patients that die."
Yeah,
So what is right?
right, exactly.
And so she feels very torn between, does she follow grandma? Does she follow mom? Does she try to, like, does she find her own path? Like, she's not sure what she's supposed to do. And it makes it harder knowing that mom and grandma are not getting along.
Right, right. Now
Right.
Josie May, is she interested in
Yes,
any
she
type?
is.
Okay,
Yeah. When we first meet her, we see that she's young. She's, 12.
oh,
She is helping Granny. She thinks that she wants to be a healer, but she isn't really showing any great signs of anything at this point. She
okay,
pretty much has been messing up, and grandma keeps telling her to do things one way, and she's being very much a preteen, doing whatever she wants. But as the story goes along, you see her start to really recognize that she does want to heal. She just doesn't know what she's supposed to do with it.
Ah, got you, got you, got you, got you. Okay. I can see how this can be is going to be a very complicated story, but very fascinating about how it turns out. Now, why would you want to? One of your books you've written about people of the Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
I think another one takes place during World War II.
Right?
And this one takes place in the Appalachian Mountains of North Carolina. Why did you want to set up your world in this book in Appalachian?
So the story came to me in the craziest way.
Oh,
And so I'm just going to kind of like step back and explain. I had a wart. Okay. I had a wart on my thumb. No big deal. I am at my primary care doctor and for just a regular checkup. And I said, hey, would you be able to get this wart off for me? Because, it was bothering me. And oh, no, she couldn't do that. I was going to have to go see a specialist.
okay.
So I thought this is crazy. And I went to CVS and I got a little patch and the wart fell off. I mean, it was no big deal. But I
Right.
was so fast forward, I'm now talking to my brother on the phone. And we were both complaining about how primary care doctors are doing less and less and less. And they
Mm-hmm.
constantly are shoving you off to other people. Essentially, they take your blood pressure. And if you need anything else, you have to go see a specialist.
Right.
And I told him about my wart. And he said, why didn't you have someone talk it off? And I said, what? Never heard of such a thing in my life. Right, exactly. And so I am the naive person in my family.
Okay.
People can tell me things and I'm like, oh, really? And so I figured that that's what this was,
Right.
right? So we get off the phone, but the research junkie in me thought, I've got to check this out. I'm not going to let them know that I'm checking it out, but I'm going to check this out. And guess what? There are people who talk off warts. So you go to this person and they either talk to your wart and within a week it falls off, or sometimes they buy your wart. So yeah, it's crazy. So anyway, now I'm looking because it's like, this is crazy. Well, turns out that there are people who can do things like blow in your mouth if you have thrush and the
Yeah.
thrush will disappear.
Oh my gosh.
And that there are people who can talk to a breech baby and get the baby to flip.
Oh my goodness.
And the more research I did, the more I found out that a lot of these magical, I don't know what other term to use, but that unusual ability to heal happened a lot in the Appalachian Mountains. So
Wow.
without, just like a character was just born. Maggie came into being. I knew her name immediately. I knew her name was going to be Maggie. I had no idea what her last name was going to be or where the story was going or anything, but I knew Maggie and Maggie started talking to me. And, I knew that it needed to be at the turn of the century because I like to have generational conflict. And that would have been the perfect time for old medicine ways versus new medical ways that were coming into being. And definitely had to be in the Appalachian Mountains. I live in North Carolina. I've been living here for 40 years now. This is my home. And
Right.
so I thought my other books have had a North Carolina mention,
Right.
both of them. And this one had to as well. And I just decided that the mountains of North Carolina made the most sense.
Oh, got you. Got
And
you.
then because I had them in the mountains of North Carolina, we do have a Cherokee tribe that was not sent away, that did not have to travel on the Trail of Tears. And
Right.
so I thought, oh, I could bring in some Cherokee medicine and ideas as well.
Mhm.
And yeah, then the story just started taking its own little thing. So
Well, I will say you are meant to be an author if if that's what you got out of you having a wart.
isn't that crazy? I know. I try to tell people all the time because they'll say, well, where do you get your stories? And it's like, yeah, so I'm listening to a song on the radio and my mind jumps from a particular line to another thought to another thought. And the next thing you know, there's a storyline. I was picking up shells on the beach one day, and this kind of, I don't know, like dystopian type story came to mind. I just this just doing anything, and all of a sudden it'll be like, oh, that's a story idea.
Yeah, yeah, wow, that's fantastic. Well, this book definitely sounds 100% totally intriguing, and definitely I would love to have a copy of this. Um, I'm on the board of my local library,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the things we have a meeting coming up on Thursday, and one of the things I told the president of our board is that I'd love to, be able to help bring authors to the library. That we do bring authors to the
Mm-hmm.
library, but definitely, especially since you're here in North Carolina,
Yeah. Where are you? Are you in the Charlotte area?
I am. I'm well in Gaston County, which is
Yeah.
one county over from Charlotte.
Yeah.
We easily commute to Charlotte. We're a bedroom community of Charlotte, if
Right.
you will. So would love to see what the rest of the board might think about having you come by maybe one
I,
day. I don't know where they are with their authors
right.
who lined up for 2000. Maybe 2024 might already be completed, but certainly I'm going to put your name in
Sounds
front of
great. Thank you.
so I think that
Thank you.
would be a great thing. And so, Terry, now that we are totally intrigued by this book, just give everybody a little quick background of the other two books that you have written.
All right. So my first book that came out 2 years ago was
Mhm.
Sunflowers Beneath the Snow.
Right.
You did mention that it was about 3 generations of Ukrainian women.
Mhm.
The crazy thing about that book was it came out 2 weeks before the current Ukrainian crisis.
That's right.
Which, do you remember that? And it was just like, and I had people say, how did you know? And it's like, no, that's not the way it works. I'd been writing it for a while. But
Wow.
this story has a little nugget of truth in it. I have a Ukrainian friend who told me this story. It was so incredible that I wrote 82,000 words of fiction to tell those 3 pages of truth. So the last 3 pages of the last chapter, not the epilogue, but the last chapter, are true. And then everything else is my imagination to how we could have gotten to that point.
Wow.
Yeah. And then An Enemy Like Me is World War II genre.
Mhm.
But the main character, his name is Jacob, and then his family, so his wife and his son, are the 3 points of view that we follow. And
Mhm.
Jacob is a first generation American. His
Oh.
family, his family is from Germany,
Okay.
and he's born in the United States. He meets Bonnie. He falls in love. He thinks he's going to have his happily ever after, and World War II strikes.
Ah.
And eventually he goes to fight, but he thinks he's going to fight the Japanese. And he ends up in Germany and realizes that he's more like the enemy than he is different from the enemy.
Oh.
So we
Wow.
follow his journey from his point of view, but we also follow Bonnie, who's left at home, and their 4-year-old son. So we
Okay.
see it from his point of view as well.
Oh, wow. Now, so that there goes the threes. You typically writing in threes and typically writing in historical. Is there
Yeah,
anything about the threes? We already discussed the generational conflict, but when you talk about enemy like us, right?
like me, an enemy like me.
Enemy like
Yeah,
me, then you've got three people, but they're not
not 3 generations, right?
right.
Right. It's really 2 generations, but it's the
Hmm.
husband, wife, and then their son. I think for me, 3 is, I don't know, it's easy for me to still keep up with where I am. I think if I had more points of view than that, I'd start getting lost.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I am a what I call a pantser, which means that I kind of write by the seat of my pants. I don't have a very detailed outline.
Hmm.
So the more complex it would get, I think the more I would feel that I had to have an outline. I'd start getting lost with what character said something and where am I.
Yeah.
Less than 3, and I don't feel like you're getting a full picture. I like being able to see things from multiple angles because
Hmm.
it just gives you that opportunity to explore concepts,
Right.
you know, like thoroughly. You know, if you have one point of view, you can only explore the concept from that person's point of view, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I kind of like that idea of being able to say, well, this is what this person sees. But hey, in the very same room is someone who sees it differently.
Right.
And
Exactly.
and I think that it's very reflective of real life.
Right.
Because if you and I were to sit down and have a conversation on just about any topic, we would see things differently.
Right. Right. Right.
Right? Just
Definitely.
because your life experiences are different than my life experiences. And so I like that ability to do that. Now,
Mm.
what's really crazy though is I'm currently writing a manuscript and it is 180 degrees different than anything I have ever done. So
Wow.
it's not historical fiction.
Oh.
It's actually humor. It's contemporary women's fiction humor. It's about a woman going through menopause.
Uh-oh,
It's
that's a hot topic.
it's her point of view only, and
Okay.
it's present tense, not
Okay.
past tense. It's so different, but this character has been talking to me for years.
Oh,
And I
wow.
have finally decided, okay, I'm going to give her a voice. And then I don't believe that I'll never write historical fiction again because I really love that. But I
Yeah.
just think that this character was very demanding and she does not fit historical fiction.
Okay. Okay.
She's very tongue in cheek. She's very, I don't know, she's kind of me, but not me. You know,
Okay.
like there's just and she's funny and we see things like, you know, what my kids call the bingo arm wings, you know, and the you know and the forgetfulness and the hot flashes and all of the things done in a way that's funny.
Okay.
Because the truth is if you're a woman, you either have experienced it, are currently experiencing it, or going to experience it. And we talk a lot about it. And so it's just a kind of a humorous look at it. Kind of
Got it.
in the vein of more of like an Irma Bombeck kind of.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I remember Irma Bombeck.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. That sounds very, very interesting as well. Well, as usual, Terry, we will have information about how you can be contacted and get your
Fantastic.
books on the Bookaholic podcast and in the show notes and possibly in a blog, so everybody will be able to grab your books.
Fantastic. Yeah, just, you know, look for me. My website's easy. It's my name, Teri M Brown, 1 R. Um, and if you go there, you can sign up for my newsletter. You can follow me on all my social media. I'm on everything, absolutely everything. So, you know, look for me. I'm still trying to figure out where I belong, so I'm everywhere at the moment.
Yes, I understand that totally. And just congratulations on your book that
Thank you.
just came out this January. That's fantastic.
Thank you so
I want
much.
a copy so bad. Well, so everybody also don't forget, Bookaholic is having a book bonanza in 2024. The deadline for that contest is January 31st. Just head over to book-a-holic.com and register to win. You get 12 free books this year, your own choice. Okay, so it's a fantastic contest. You get 12 brand new books for 2024. You can't beat that. So I
Can't.
hope you sign up. All right, thanks so much, Terry.
Thank
Glad to have
you.
you.
Thank you. Bye.